Memories of a Pop's Cottage Vacation at Tawas Lake, Michigan by Dennis M. Morrison. I suppose everyone has special vacation memories from when they were kids. My family never went any place you could call exciting or exotic. Most of our vacations were spent at Little Pop's Cottage in Tawas, Michigan. It was owned by Bill Pop, who was a farmer in Bridgeport, and his daughter Jean and my brother were fiancés at the time and later were married. I grew up in the mid-1960s in Bridgeport, which was a suburb of Saginaw. I was an indoor kid who had all the modern conveniences of the time. Our television set even got 3 whole channels in black and white. I had a good childhood, but those vacations were dreaded by me because it was like stepping back to the 1920s. Now I wish I could step back to the 1920s. But as I look back, those times provide me with some of the most special recollections of the times of my youth. Pop's cottage was small. My dad, mom, 2 brothers and sister, as well as a bevy of guests who always trailed along, were crammed into 2 bedrooms, a very small living room, and a small kitchen. It is as if that wasn't bad enough. There was no running water. There was a hand pump and a sink in one corner of the kitchen. If you wanted to wash up, you had to break your arm getting the pump to cough out some water. And when finally the water did come out, it was about as ice cold as you can imagine. Of course, we could heat up the water on the wood stove, also in the kitchen, but we'd be choked out by the smoke, which happened on more than a few occasions. And I remember thinking at the time what a wretched way to spend a week or 2 in the summer. Of course, no running water meant there was no inside toilet. So out back was an outhouse. It was smelly, stinky, little structure where bees and spiders made their homes in abundance. It was, nonetheless, a peaceful place where I could get away from everyone else because no one else wanted to be out there unless it was a real emergency. There was a large stack and supply of comic books in there, so I passed many an hour reading old comic books in that outhouse. But lack of indoor plumbing caused a lot of problems when nature called, especially at night. And I remember one incident that still makes me chuckle after all these years. My mom, my sister Roseanne, and my brother's fiancée Jean were in the kitchen one warm evening playing a card game when they all of a sudden all had to go potty at the same time, as women often do. Problem was, none of them wanted to go way out back to the outhouse in the dark. So, toilet paper in hand, the 3 went outside to the bushes under the kitchen window. Knowing that I had a natural tendency to play pranks, my mom looked at me on the way out with a glance that admonished that I should try nothing funny. But who, me? An idea came to mind. An evil idea. A fun idea. I left them just enough time to take up their positions in the bushes, get their pants down, and I walked over, placed my hand on the light switch, mustered up all my courage, and switched on the outside light, which was very bright. From outside there came loud screams and even laughter from a nearby cabin as the 3 women, red-faced, rushed into the kitchen. Her eyes trained on me. My mother's glare made me cringe, but all that resulted, though, were some stern, angry looks followed by their own laughter as they realized the humor of the situation. But revenge was soon to come upon me. For that night I got to sleep in the living room alone. It was always damp and always had kind of an odor of skunk. And even though very small, the room seemed quite huge to me at night when I was by myself. I had dropped off into a sound sleep only to be awakened a few hours later by a storm raging outside. The thunder shook the cottage and the lightning was non-stop. And as if that wasn't bad enough, I had the worst stomach ache I ever remember having in my entire life. I laid there in the darkness, watching the lightning and hoping that the abdominal discomfort would pass. But it only got worse. There was but one thing to do: use the metal chamber pot under the window in the kitchen. Everyone else was sound asleep, and I made my way into the kitchen, and in the brilliant flashes of lightning, there it sat. I walked over, took off the lid, pulled down my shorts, and sat down. Now, if you sit on a metal chamber pot for more than a few minutes, the agony on your backside is hard to describe. So my stomach aching, my backside agonizing against the metal, I sat there certain things were going to get worse, for I had no doubt a bolt of lightning would strike me and fuse my behind to that metal pot. As horrible as I felt that experience was, I look back on it now and laugh. These were not luxury accommodations or vacations, but I feel fortunate I got a chance to live a little of what the rural lifestyle was that was even then fast fading and is now all but gone. As a comfort to me, Mom later told me of an embarrassing chamber pot incident that happened to her many years before in the 1930s. Dad and Mom were newly married, and they went to Lincoln, Michigan to spend a weekend at Dad's aunt's farmhouse. It was a place with, you guessed it, no indoor plumbing. Dad and Mom slept upstairs, and under each bed was a chamber pot. The aunt in question was very prim and proper, and Mom was a little bit on the shy side. It was her hated responsibility to take the chamber pot down in the morning to empty it. Well, she was embarrassed. As I said, she was on the shy side. I mean, everybody poops and pees, but she was still embarrassed to do that, to take that down. So one morning, she opened the bedroom window and was ready to toss the contents and the pot out. And as she went to heave the pot, the pot, it slipped and the window came sailing down. And before you knew it, there was a loud crash. The results were the loud shattering of glass. And Mom said it took her a long time to get over the shame of that episode as everybody came rushing up to see what had happened. Well, those vacation days of my youth are now long gone, but I will never forget those happy days at Pop's Cottage because they belong exclusively to me and to that happy place we call the good old days.